Hey gamers, if you love storytelling and have a real knack for thinking on your feet, then you're going to want to check out The Plot Thickens. Let's take a look at how this one plays. In this game, players will decide how many chapters or rounds they want to play, and they will be collectively building a story together. On your first turn, you will have to introduce your character, and then you can play any of the cards that start out in your hand. You will always have 5 cards available to you, but you do start with 1 person, 2 places, and 2 things. So on my first turn, I might say something to introduce myself like, oh, I'm Joe Money and I am a gambler. I love to just play card games and gamble all of my money away. I'm not so good at it sometimes, but there is a suitcase full of money at the back of the club tonight that has my name on it. You can play all of your cards if you are able to and if your story makes sense, or you can stop whenever you've run out of ideas or when you've run out of cards. When you are finished with your portion of a story in a round, you will just say, meanwhile, to kick it off to the next player. At that point, you will collect plot points for all of the cards that you did play that round, which can be used later in the game. Plot points can be used to mainly thicken the plot, so later on when other people have cards in front of them, you can use their keywords. So if somebody else was telling part of the story and say, well, I went to the club tonight, they would put one of their plot points on my card. You cannot put plot points on your own cards, and you can only put one out on other players' cards, even if you use those words multiple times. But that is how you can thicken the plot, is by kind of tying everything together between all of the players. You can also use plot points to switch cards that you don't like that are in your hand, or you can edit sentences. So if you say something and you think it didn't make sense, or it just didn't come out the way that you thought it would, you can spend a plot point to kind of rewrite that sentence instead. At the end of each round, depending on how many cards you have left in your hand, you'll draw back up to 5, and you can draw from any of the piles, so you can really customize your hand if you think that you are going to try and go a certain direction with your story. Once all of the chapters that were pre-decided on have been played through, with people playing all of their different cards out to signify the different chapters, so after 3 chapters perhaps, the player that has the most plot points on other players' cards is the main character, and they will get to end the story, trying to connect the dots, tie up loose ends, and then the player with the most plot points on their own cards will be the author and get to choose the title of the story once the ending has been told. All in all, there are no winners and losers. It's just about making a story collectively together as a team. Overall, I thought this game was pretty neat. I really do like telling stories, writing stories, but this game was super difficult. When you really sit down and just have only like the cards in your hand and you really trying to focus on getting those integrated into whatever story you're trying to tell, it can be really difficult to actually get those cards played without kind of veering off the path of making that story make sense. It's definitely one of those games where you really have to be cautious of who you're playing with. If people are really just not into the storytelling or like getting into that kind of character, then it's not going to be nearly as fun. But if you pick the right people to play with, then you can just make a story that you're going to take it really seriously and it's going to be a really good story, or you're going to have a lot of silliness and that's going to just be really fun as well. Either way that you play it, it's going to be a good time as long as everybody is invested in that storytelling aspect. I also thought that this could be like a really cool tool to use in like classes or something to kind of teach kids on how to tell stories, or even in college courses really, to help spark some creative writing juices and things like that. But either way, I thought that the game was neat. But again, if you're not really into storytelling or kind of taking on a persona to kind of put yourself into the story, then it might be a pass for you. But you can see my full thoughts on the blog today and see if it's for you.